While Mao Zedong's upbringing proved an unlikely rise to power, he was a pivotal figure. Mao and his party went through many challenges and they rose above. His rise to power and contributions during the Civil War revolutionized China and established a lasting one-party state. Imagine living in a country where your rulers are losing wars, foreign powers carve out pieces of your homeland, rebellions kill tens of millions, and the entire system that shaped life for centuries is falling apart. Now imagine that within just a few decades, the same country transformed to a new republic, lost the Civil War, and eventually becomes one of the most powerful nations in the world. For centuries, the Qing Empire ruled China, but by the 1800s, people could feel things falling apart. Foreign powers pushed their way in. The Opium Wars against Great Britain forced China to open ports, give up Hong Kong, and allow foreigners to control sections of major cities. Losing the Sino-Japanese War was another blow. China had to give up Taiwan, parts of Manchuria, and its influence over Korea. Internally, the population was exploding. Millions of people struggled with poverty, and then came the Taiping Rebellion, one of the deadliest conflicts in the world history, killing about 20 million. Other rebellions followed, and Chinese thinkers argued intensely about the future. Should the empire stay the same? Should it reform? Or should it be overthrown entirely?
By the early 1900s, the Qing dynasty was collapsing. Foreign powers controlled Chinese ports, took land in major cities, and operated under their own laws. Many Chinese people saw this as a national humiliation. At the same time, China's population had grown rapidly, making life harder for ordinary families and increasing anger towards the government. Chinese thinkers began debating China's future. Some wanted to preserve traditional rule, others supported reforms like a constitutional monarchy, and a growing number believed the dynasty itself needed to be overthrown. Revolutionary groups organized in secret, especially in southern China, and although early uprisings failed, they revealed how weak the Qing government had become. Even worse, the dynasty revolutionaries gained support within the army. In October 1911, a revolt broke out in Wuchang. It quickly spread. Province after province broke away from Qing rule. Desperate, the imperial court recalled General Yuan Shikai, giving him control of the military in exchange for stability. With no other options left, the Qing emperor abdicated in early 1912, ending over 2,000 years of imperial rule and creating the Republic of China. However, the new republic was fragile. Yuan Shikai soon ruled like a dictator and later declared himself emperor, destroying public trust and weakening China's position internationally. After his death, China fell into warlord rule and political chaos. It was during the unstable period that figures like Mao Zedong began to emerge, believing that real change would come not from emperors or elites, but from the common people.
During this chaotic time, a boy named Mao Zedong was growing up in a farming family in Zedong. He went to school between the ages of 8 and 13, but was then forced to work on the farm full-time. Mao rebelled against his father, against expectations, and even against an arranged marriage he didn't want. He left home to pursue education in Changsha, where new revolutionary ideas spread quickly. When the 1911 revolution reached the city, Mao joined a revolutionary army and served for about 6 years. Afterward, he explored many different career paths, including law, business, police work, and even teaching before graduating from a teacher school in 1918, where he organized student groups and became fascinated with politics. By 1919, he helped unite students, merchants, and workers to protect Japanese interference in China. During the 1920s, China was deeply unstable. After the fall of the Qing dynasty and the failure of the early republic, the country was divided among warlords, foreign powers, and weak governments. Two major groups emerged, claiming they could reunite and rebuild China. The nationalists, also known as the Kuomintang, and the Chinese Communist Party. At first, the Communists and the Nationalists worked together. This alliance, known as the First United Front, aimed to defeat warlords and strengthen China. During this period, Mao Zedong became more involved in communist politics and began studying how revolutions could succeed in a largely rural country. Unlike many communist leaders who focused on urban workers, Mao believed that the peasants were the true key to revolution in China. This fragile alliance collapsed in 1927 when nationalist leader Chiang Kai-shek ordered a violent purge of communists in Shanghai. Thousands were killed, and the Communist Party was nearly destroyed. Mao survived by fleeing to the countryside, where he began organizing poorer farmers. He focused on land reform and trained peasants to fight, using guerrilla tactics rather than traditional military methods. In September 1927, Mao led the Autumn Harvest Uprising, an attempt to spark a peasant rebellion. The uprising failed due to poor coordination and limited resources, forcing Mao and his forces to retreat into the Jing'an Mountains. Although criticized by communist leaders, Mao continued building a small army with Zhu De, laying the foundation for the Red Army. This shift toward peasant-based revolution would eventually change the course of the Chinese Civil War.
By 1934, the communist movement was close to collapse. Nationalist forces had surrounded the communist base in Jiangxi, leaving Mao Zedong and the Red Army with only one option to escape. This retreat became known as the Long March. Carrying limited supplies, the Red Army crossed mountains, rivers, and harsh terrain. While being chased by nationalist troops and local warlords, one of the worst moments came in the Jiang River, where communist forces were nearly wiped out by heavy gunfire. Thousands were killed, forcing the survivors to abandon much of their equipment to move faster. Despite disease, exhaustion, and constant attacks, the Red Army continued forward. In January 1935, communist leaders met in Zhongyi. There, Mao criticized earlier strategies and argued for guerrilla warfare, with support from key leaders. Mao emerged as the leader of both the Red Army and the Communist Party. Though only a fraction survived, the Long March kept the communist movement alive and secured Mao's leadership. Soon after, Japan became China's greatest threat. In 1937, a full-scale invasion forced the nationalists and the communists into a temporary alliance, known as the Second United Front. The nationalists fought major battles with the foreign support, but suffered heavy losses and retreated inland. The communists avoided large battles using guerrilla tactics to weaken Japanese forces while expanding their influence in rural areas, though discipline and land reform. Although officially united, both sides distrusted each other. Corruption and inflation weakened the nationalist government. While communist support continued to grow, by the time Japan was close to defeat, the balance of power had shifted, setting the stage for the final phase of the Chinese Civil War.
As World War II came to an end, the uneasy alliance between the nationalists and communists quickly fell apart. Japan's surrender in 1945 removed the one force holding them together. Almost immediately, both sides raced to take control of territory, weapons, and key cities. The long-delayed Civil War was about to begin again, this time for the future of all of China. The United States attempted to prevent another full-scale conflict, sending General George Marshall to negotiate a compromise government. These efforts failed. Both sides believed they could win outright. Although the nationalists had more soldiers and American support, their government struggled with corruption, poor leadership, and severe inflation that hurt everyday people. The communists, led by Mao Zedong, focused on northern China, especially Manchuria. Their communist General Lin Biao used effective guerrilla tactics and surrounded nationalist forces in major cities. Communist land reforms, though often brutal, won peasant support, while nationalist authority continued to collapse. By 1948, communist victories came one after another. Entire nationalist armies surrendered or were destroyed. Civilians suffered heavily as cities like Changchun and Shenyang were encircled. In early 1949, communist forces captured key positions and Chiang Kai-shek resigned as president. Beijing surrendered soon after, followed by Nanjing and Shanghai. On October 1st, 1949, Mao Zedong announced the creation of the People's Republic of China. The nationalists fled to Taiwan, ending their rule on the mainland and marking the communist victory in the Chinese Civil War. Mao Zedong's pivotal contributions in the revolution of China led to a lasting one-party state. Mao grew up with many difficulties but found a way to get through them and achieve a higher education along with his interests. Although unlikely, his rise to power showed true progress through China and showed his resilience. His contributions in the Civil War helped him establish a lasting one-party state that is used today. Mao is an important figure who led an important revolution to forever change China.